So one of the first areas I want to look at is thinking about acceptance. As Lucy put it, shit happens and we can't actually control what happens to us. As much as we want to think that we're in control of our lives, sometimes we're not. Things happen, and there is an element of the first stage, or one of the main qualities that she quoted was obviously an acceptance of the circumstances as they are. They have happened and you need to accept of what you can and can't control. And so when I was looking into researching this guide, I wanted to come and give you some ideas of ways that people had shown resilience and acceptance in times of great hardship. And a really great book, if you ever get the opportunity to read it, is this one here, which is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. It is incredible. He was a psychologist, he was a Jewish psychologist, and obviously during the Second World War he was incarcerated in Auschwitz. And part of the book really tracks is, the first part is all about his experiences of what was happening psychologically with the people that were taken to Auschwitz, and the psychological and emotional journey that these people went on when they were firstly captured, then they were in the camps, and they were dealing with various hardships, hard winters, starvation, typhoid outbreaks, the sort of hope of them being released and the war being over, and these repeated rumour mills that went round, and people's hope went up and then it went down, and it's just harrowing. Viktor Frankl himself lost all of his entire family apart from his sister to the gas chambers, so an incredibly resilient person. He managed to get through about 3.5 years in these concentration camps. But what I found was incredibly interesting reading the book is that he unpicks exactly like how people dealt with these incredibly trying circumstances. So when we're talking about resilience and we're talking about times of suffering and hardship and toughness and how to get through these situations, his observations from the concentration camps is incredible. One section that I do want to read to you is, there's so many quotes from here and so much wisdom to be found in this book, but one of the quotes that I wanted to read to you, which I think really succinctly explains acceptance in terms of what these men were going through in the concentration camps, and also what we can take to apply to our own lives with regards to acceptance. So, it did not really matter what we expected from life, but rather that life expected from us. We needed to stop asking about the meaning of life and instead to think of ourselves as those who were being questioned by life daily and hourly. Our answer must consist not in talk or meditation, but in right action and in right conduct. Life ultimately means taking the responsibility to find the right answer to its problems and to fulfill the task which it consistently sets each individual. So it's that constant challenges of life, and that our responsibility ultimately lies in rising up to these challenges and getting through these challenges. And he just has such a beautiful way with words. So it's such a poignant thing to think about, that actually life is part of living through all of these challenges. We would never want to live a sheltered life where we didn't potentially have the risk of there being some hardship at some point, but part of the journey of life is this going through these challenges, seeing what I've read is there's another great book called The Obstacle is the Way, and he talks about that the obstacles the obstacles in the path, become the path. So it's basically this idea that life is full of challenges, so it's part of it. And what he also explained was that in having this awareness of this being part of living, being part of life, he said that he constantly, he's quoted Nietzsche quite a lot of times, which is, those who have a why can live with any what. And so if we know that this is just part of being alive, and we accept that this is part of being alive, then there isn't this paradigm of why me. And this resistance to, or this lack of acceptance of these hardships as they occur, is part of the problem, and part of where resilient people seem to get moved through these things and other people seem to be pushed back by them. And I think this is a really valuable quality and a really interesting thing to think about, is this distinction between the people that view challenges as part of life and the others that have this why me, sort of almost a victim mentality to the things and circumstances that happen to them. So sometimes in these situations, it's thinking viewing these challenges and viewing these obstacles as they are, as opportunities to grow, as opportunities to learn something more, as opportunities to rise to the challenge, as it were. And so in Ryan Holiday's book, The Obstacle Is Away, he's an incredible author, and he loves studying the Stoics. So he loves studying like the Greek philosophers and their sort of Stoic quotes and things like that. I always find it really grounding. And in his book, The Obstacle Is Away, he states, the obstacle in the path becomes a path. Never forget, within every obstacle is an opportunity to improve our condition. And so taking this approach to life as part of the acceptance phase and part of the acceptance qualities of people who are resilient, they accept what has happened to them and then they move through it. Eckhart Tolle, the famous author of Power of Now, also talked about this in his book as well. And he mentioned about this state of isness, which is basically, it is what it is. We are where we are. We can't change it. The only thing that we can change is, we have the freedom of using our minds and responsibility over our thoughts and how we approach these things. And certainly from Viktor Frankl's experiences in the concentration camps, those that could see this as a challenge that they were worthy of and that they wanted to overcome and they wanted to grow from were the ones that survived. And this is this mindset piece that he just so beautifully explains, where the prisoners that had a sense of why they wanted to live always lived, and there was a very transient stage that happened when people's mindset changed. And he said that when he saw this in somebody, that they'd just given in and that they had resentment and resistance to the circumstances they found themselves in, that they were the ones that unfortunately, because of malnourishment, starvation, etc., were the ones that didn't make it. And so this is a really valuable tool, but it is something to be consciously aware of, because when you are down and when hardship happens and when you are faced with adversity and challenges, you can feel a little bit disheartened by them and a little bit why me about it. But part of this process is the most resilient people are the ones that accept the circumstances as they have happened and that they move through these stages and they accept the isness of it. And from that point, they move forward. They move through the process. So in today's exercise, what I want to do is ask you to look out some maybe passages and quotes and different things or books that you have available to you. So almost when you're having times of struggle, you have a sort of toolkit or something inspirational or something to go to help remind you of to be in acceptance of the circumstances. I, for example, have like passages just outlined or highlighted in books. I have scribbled little quotes and little things in my journal. I have previous journal entries from past tough experiences, so I've got those to rely on as well. But think of some ways that you can remind yourself to stay in acceptance in times of adversity. Like I say, poems or quotes can be great. Having books that you rewrite a passage from a book that you find particularly inspirational. Journaling on past experiences is a great one as well. So think of three things that you can sort of, maybe a current struggle or a recent struggle that you've had, and three things that you learned from it. Even just journaling on that and just thinking about some of the positives from the challenges that we faced can be a hugely beneficial tool. So that's your genius action for today, is to start building this toolkit of these little inspirational and perspective shifting quotes, passages, whatever it is that you feel would help you to have to turn to in times of hardship.